Today is the full moon in Leo, and this is a significant full moon because we have a lot of people's gifts coming online these next few years as you connect to yourself, as we lean into that North Node in Pisces and we become aware of the illusions and delusions that previously were placed on us. That's what the North Node in Pisces and Saturn in Pisces is doing for us right now. Pluto is in Aquarius. This full moon, a full moon is always the sun opposite the moon, and the sun is in Aquarius right now. We're going to get to the full moon in a second and why it's so important, but hang with me. So, Aquarius is the great awakener. It sees things from a higher perspective. It's not just going to go with what someone says. It's going to question what someone says. It's going to rebel against what someone says and try to look at it from the most awakened, highest perspective. What has been happening here on Earth the last several years, especially I feel like since Uranus entered Taurus, Uranus rules Aquarius, I have seen a collective awakening. People have just been more and more awakened to spirituality, which then makes them awakened to see where they're being manipulated more than ever, right? We're seeing things from a higher perspective. And here's the thing about the illusions that have been placed on us by society and other people. I talked about this in my last podcast episode, how, you know, with Pluto and Capricorn, the shadowy thing would people would be climbing to the top of the ladder, getting to the top of the hierarchy by doing shady shit. Now we see those people and we're like, you're narcissistic. And it's so blatantly obvious and they can't pull the rug over us anymore, right? And it's because people are too awake. It's because people have been connecting to themselves. And this is just the beginning. It's just the beginning of connection to self. Because we've been so trained to not connect to ourselves our whole life. For thousands and thousands of years, it's been about the world outside of us. And just now, we're really understanding how vast and important and intelligent the world inside of us is, and how it's actually connecting to that world that unlocks our deepest, most hidden gifts. And that is how Pisces energy works. Pisces, everyone has Pisces in their chart. It's also associated with the 12th house in your chart. Everyone has it because everyone has self-sabotaging behavior, right? But also everyone has a limitless nature, and that is Pisces. And the thing about Pisces is as you become aware, as the veil thins, as you see your self-sabotaging behavior, because you're connecting to yourself and your truth, and you're no longer rejecting your truth in order to fit in with the crowd, right? Because we're finally having permission to connect to ourselves, we're able to see the illusions of narcissistic things, like people doing narcissistic things, but we can also see the illusions that we have placed on ourselves. And it's the thing that keeps us stuck. And why am I bringing all of this up? Well, with Pisces energy, when you become aware of the illusion you've placed on yourself, when you become aware of the reality box you have lived in because you keep responding to a pattern from not your power. Like, for example, you get a scary bill, you feel scarcity, you respond with scarcity, and you start scrambling to make it work. You start controlling things outside of you. But what has been happening is we've been slowly taught about manifestation and that like attracts like. And so that energy has started to shift slowly but surely to the point where now it's just becoming something we're all more aware of because we're paying attention to how we feel inside. And so with Pisces, when you can become aware that when you react to something and try to control something outside of you, it keeps you in a pattern. Whereas when you recognize that pattern because the illusion goes away, you start to see, oh my God, all I have to do is make myself feel safe first and not react in that way. And I'll end the pattern, right? And so Pisces is also the sign of our gifts and hidden gifts, gifts that have been hidden from humanity, from society, because we've been blind to them, because we've been focusing on the material realm, because we haven't learned our true spiritual nature, but we're awakening to it now. So all of this feeds into this full moon, because this full moon in Leo is a full moon that brings peak tension to a pattern that you have consistently played out for a long time, that you consistently have done your best to break free from, but just seems to be repeating over and over and over again. And it is in this peak tension that's occurring at this full moon is because as the veil is thinning out, as we're able to now see some of our self-sabotaging behavior, this full moon is like, hey, it's time. It's time to blow the lid off this pattern. It's time to bust into this new version of you. It's time to bust out of that pattern. And so therefore, because you're becoming aware of your spiritual nature, your limitless nature, you're becoming aware that if things really drain your energy, it's not for you. You're becoming aware of how the things you do in your life, or because you learned it from your ancestry and upbringing, but it's not really in alignment with you and who you are and your power. You're just doing it because you subconsciously learned to do it growing up. You're becoming aware of those things at this full moon, and you're likely going to become aware of those things because of peak tension that has been building all week. So, the reason I say this is long-standing patterns is because we have a full moon that's creating a T-square between 3 fixed signs. We have the sun in Aquarius, that's a fixed sign. Opposite the moon in Leo, that's a fixed sign. Opposite Uranus in Taurus, that's a fixed sign. And the thing about fixed signs is they are great because they can be consistent as fuck. So consistent. You lock them into a pattern, they'll play the long game. The downside to fixed signs is they stay consistent as fuck. And they can stay stuck and stubborn and fixed and want to change, but have such a hard time changing because all they know is consistency. And that's peak frustration. You have to imagine that, right? So there's something being brought up to you around this full moon that was peak frustration that is bringing you to a point where you are now reflecting on what got you here in this first place, where you're placing your energy, and whether where you're placing your energy is in direct alignment with your values or not. This is where this T-square with Uranus and Taurus comes in at this full moon. So when we have a T-square is the most challenging aspect in astrology because it's like all of these consistent, stubborn parts of us battling it out, saying, no, you give, no, you give, no, you give. And Uranus and Taurus is the peak. It's the apex of the T-square, meaning that we look to that to help us resolve and come to our big release at the full moon. The thing about Uranus and Taurus is Uranus wants to awaken you to Taurus things in your birth chart. So it wants to awaken you to your true self-worth. Sometimes we stay stuck in a pattern because unconsciously we don't think we're worthy of another pattern. And so we think if I keep doing the same pattern, it will eventually lead to the thing I want. But we fool ourselves because if you are doing a pattern from a certain level of self-worth, you will never get the thing you want because life meets you to the level at which you raise your value and standards. And so if your value and standards are down here, life will continue to meet you down here no matter how hard you work. No matter how hard you work. And so that's one thing to reflect on at this full moon is, where am I exhausted? Where am I drained? Where am I having peak frustration? And is it related to what I think I deserve? And that I just need to prove externally that I deserve more before I believe I can deserve more. Because you're never going to get there if that's the case. If you're like, I just got to keep doing this to get here. Like, notice that at this full moon. That's going to be one of the tricksters that's going to show you your self-sabotaging behavior. Another thing with this full moon, Taurus, Uranus and Taurus is awakening us not just to our self-worth, but to our values and what we truly value. Sometimes we trick ourselves into thinking we value something because our mom valued it, or we saw something happen to our mom, and so then we decided to value it. We saw something happen to our dad, so then we decided to value it. But really, the value is coming out of a trauma response rather than what you truly value. So I gave this example in my Cosmic Co-Creatrix community, but if you value, let's say you learn to value being so responsible for your family that you just disregard your own needs and you just carry your family forward, and your whole life you've just gotten so much validation for that, just being the person who carries your family forward. And so you believe you're the person who can carry their family forward until you're happy too. You think, one day I will get my way, I will be happy, only to find that that day never comes and you're burnt out and you're exhausted and you're just wanting at peak frustration. So you decide to do something you do enjoy. You're like, well, this seems like it's never going to end. Maybe I'll try to do something I enjoy. You try to do something you enjoy, and then your family starts to fall apart. They start blaming you because they become used to you being the one to do everything and putting it all on you. And now you feel like you're getting exiled from the family for doing something you love, and you just feel helpless, completely helpless. And so you stop doing this thing you love, and you go back to your family because that validation felt better than how you're feeling right now. Only to return to the peak frustration. That's what could be building for you this week. You could have tried to do things that felt exciting, that felt fun, only to get pulled back into the same situation and said, see, I can't be happy. That doesn't work. The thing is when you choose happiness, when you choose what you truly value, you can't also hold on to the old thing that you value that wasn't really something you valued. But we want to stay safe. This is this T-square with Taurus. Taurus wants to stay in its comfort zone. It takes a long time for Taurus to change its values because it wants to stay in its comfort zone. It wants to be everything all at once for everyone. It wants to be loyal. Where are you being overly loyal, and that loyalty is actually the thing that's draining you and keeping you from living your best life because it's not truly in alignment with your worth, what you want, what you value. You're just being responsible and doing the thing you think you need to do. You see what I'm saying? And that's why it can feel like peak tension, because part of resolving self-sabotaging behaviors with Pisces, that Saturn in Pisces and the North Node in Pisces is trying to do, and that's a big part of this full moon we'll get to in a second, is sometimes you have to have, it's a karmic ending. Pisces is the sign of karmic endings, and you have to close out a chapter of your life and be willing to surrender it and see where the chips fall. Be willing to have your family hate you for a while because you're sharing the responsibility with them, but be willing to love yourself first. And so this can feel like a messy end and a messy new beginning. It could feel like an exciting end that you're like, that you snap out of this old pattern and you're full steam ahead with all positivity. I don't want you to think this is all negativity. It's a big release. It's a big release that propels you forward if you do the work at this full moon. Full moons don't just happen to you. I talk about all the time that I will never tell you astrology just happens to you. I mean, lessons can come up for you, but it's you who gets to learn the lessons. It's you who gets to create the magic. It's you who gets to respond to the astrology. And that's the point of everything I talk about. So respond. If you're feeling drained, look at what's draining you. If you're at peak frustration, look at your values, look at your patterns and what you learned to do growing up. And be willing to close out a chapter of your life, and it will feel like death. But also be willing to look at what that can bring into your life by you focusing on all the things you really do want. Remember, every time you close out a Pisces self-sabotaging behavior, you open up its gifts. And as you can see in this scenario, if this person were to close out this family, not completely, obviously, still the family, but like lean into what's fun for them and the joy, and just trust that they get to create joy first. Imagine what that could lead them to in their life if they just kept following that breadcrumb. That's what I mean by every time you end a self-sabotaging Pisces behavior, it opens up gifts. So the other thing about this full moon, why this all ties in together, is Saturn in Pisces is in a trine with Mars in Cancer retrograde. Mars in Cancer retrograde has been teaching us to connect to our emotions and figure out what the hell they're telling you. It's been saying, what are my emotions trying to say to me, because I feel like crap. And I'm not going to continue to take the same action because I keep getting in this same pattern, this same situation. That's why Mars retrograde is slowing down your action for a lot of people. And for others who don't take a lot of action, it's making you take action. It's making you just take action differently than you normally do by relating to how your emotions differently. This is another example I gave in my Cosmic Co-Creatrix, but the next 2 years, it is more important than ever to connect to yourself. And what connecting to yourself will do is it will make your manifestation powers supercharged. Because here's the thing, if you come up with an affirmation or a self-concept because you feel a certain feeling, let's say you feel scarcity and you say, I make millions of dollars, I'm rich, I'm a money magnet, but you feel scarcity in your body. And you say that affirmation 1,000,000 times a day and nothing changes. It's not because affirmations don't work. It is because often I find when people pick an affirmation that feels horrible for days on end, no matter how many times they say it, it's because that feeling is not asking for what that affirmation, that feeling is asking for something else. It needs to know something else. And you only know what that feeling needs to know if you talk to it, if you slow down enough to figure out why you make this action from that feeling in the first place. And you figure out where in your ancestry, your upbringing, the patterns in your past that it tracks to, the decisions you continuously make from that feeling. It's about digging deep into that. That's where the subconscious stuff is going to be shown to you, because there's this trine, this really nice harmonious flow of energy from Mars in Cancer to Saturn in Pisces. And Saturn is helping you put boundaries around those self-sabotaging behavior. Put boundaries around that shit. Quit that shit. End that shit. Become aware of that shit. It's helping you. It's helping you put real work in to healing your self-sabotaging behavior. And so that is one of the peak potentials for you at this full moon, especially because Neptune is with the North Node right now in Pisces. Neptune rules the North Node. It's helping us become aware of all of these delusions society has placed on us, Hollywood has placed on us, if you've been following the Blair and Justin drama, our family has placed on us. People project onto you all the time, and sometimes will take it as fact and truth. Like they'll tell you, oh, you shouldn't act that way, you're not that good at this, and then you internalize it, and then you start living your life that way. That is a Pisces self-sabotaging behavior. That's what I mean. We're putting boundaries around that shit and becoming aware that it's not about what someone says to us outside of us that makes something true. It's what we believe about ourselves, our self-concept, that manifests into our reality. And the more you connect to yourself, the more you connect to the person that your soul wants to become, and you react differently. You give yourself safety first. And so the Sabian symbol for this full moon, it's so interesting. The Sabian symbol for Leo 25, because this full moon's happening at 24 degrees Leo, is a large camel crossing a vast and forbidding desert. The meaning and the interpretation. This symbol represents endurance, resilience, and self-sufficiency in the face of difficult or isolating experiences. It suggests that you have the inner resources to navigate long, challenging journeys, even when external support is scarce. That kind of goes with the whole example that I gave, but here's the thing. That's what I mean, is you've been living a pattern from external support, external validation. Leo in the low vibe wants external validation. In the high vibe, it validates itself. This is a full moon in Leo. This pattern that you're likely breaking, becoming free of, is it's been keeping you stuck because it's been based on something outside of you that is impossible. You will never get out of it if you keep focusing on that thing outside of you. And so it's almost having to surrender all the external validation in order to come in and validate yourself and find your own internal endurance, like it says, resilience and self-sufficiency. A large camel crossing a vast and forbidding desert, no one's more vulnerable to the elements and no one has a longer trek, but you can do it. And it will resource from its inner self, camels. And that is what this full moon is about. It's about digging deep, and you're changing a long-standing pattern because you are recognizing that it all does start from within. Or that's the hope, that you recognize that. And then because the sun is opposite the moon, I wanted to look at the Sabian symbol for Aquarius 25. And I think this is extra telling for this full moon. It's a butterfly with the right wing more perfectly formed. This symbol represents growth, transformation, and the process of becoming, but with some imbalances or asymmetrics along the way. It suggests that you are evolving into your next level, but there may still be areas of development that feel incomplete or unbalanced. And here's the thing. You likely are unbalanced. I mean, you're already unbalanced if you're focusing on something outside of you and you're chasing something outside of you. And so obviously this other wing, this wing of developing your inner resources, of choosing your self-concept and anchoring in your new self-concept and connecting to yourself, is what's being asked to be built at this full moon. And if you start building it, you will have the universe meet you. If you validate yourself first, you will get the real validation you've always been looking for. That's how self-concept work works. That's what I do with people, because, and this is why if you combine the self-concept work with astrology, you'll just hop timelines left and right, because connecting to your birth chart, even at this full moon, connecting the North Node's in Pisces, the more you connect to spiritual things, you connect to your past lives, you connect to your astrology, you connect to the stars, whatever resonates with you, whatever faith-based system resonates for you. For me, it's astrology. And you combine it with self-concept work, you will hop timelines every few months. It's impossible not to. You have the whole map to the cosmos at that point, because connection to self plus faith, you're unstoppable. It's how you get everything you want. So that's the opportunity you have at this full moon. You have an opportunity to build up that other wing, that inner wing, that connection to self wing, that self-concept wing. And then let's look at the Sabian symbol for Taurus 24, because that is the peak of that challenge. Just to see what additional information it gives us. And it says, an Indian warrior riding fiercely, human scalps hanging at its belt. At his belt? I don't know if I love that one, but this symbol represents raw power, determination, and the willingness to fight for what is yours. It speaks to a deep warrior energy, one that is unafraid to claim victory, assert dominance, and defend personal values. That ties it all together. Be unafraid. And I get that it's scary to let go of a past pattern, because it could be literally being you letting go of a whole area of your life that comes crumbling down. I know what that feels like. It's a full moon, lots of emotions, intensity. I know what it feels like. I've done that in my life too. And it is always worth it to let something crumble, even if it feels painful, even if it feels like death, in order to align with what's true for you. That's what's going to be that quantum leap in your life. When you finally connect to what you value and you let life meet your values and standards instead of you chasing what you think life is, that's when you become the co-creator of your universe. That is when you also gain a lot of power, because when you face something that feels like death and then life just gets better, power, instant power move. So major breakthroughs at this full moon. I'm super excited for it. I would love to hear what breakthroughs you have, the long-standing patterns that come up. Email me, shineyourrayastrology@gmail.com. I love hearing people's astrology stories. If you would like to do some work with me, I have one-on-one coaching spot available. You can peruse the application below. You must fill out the application, and then I'll reach out to you if I think you're a good fit. I also have Higher Self Healing Codes. It's my self-paced course that teaches you how to connect to yourself and live with the astrology and your self-concept. Quit over responsibility. A lot of people who come to me feel very deeply and they feel very responsible for others, and they don't even know what they want. And so this program is literally the keys to you unlocking your truest higher self and having the balls to let your old life crumble, because you have this faith-based system that's also fun because it's astrology that's telling you exactly, it's like almost like affirming exactly what you already know and just giving you every permission slip you need to create the life you want. It's that crazy accurate. Okay, that is it for this episode. I love you. Make sure to subscribe if you're not subscribed yet already. Leave me a review. That helps this get out to more people. Like it if you can on whatever platform you're on. And I'll see you guys on the next episode.